Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to welcome the 35th IATEFL BESIG plenary speaker, Marjorie Rosenberg. Thank you, Marjorie, for agreeing to do this short information about your talk. And I've got a few questions for you, and looking forward to hearing your answers.
Great. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So first, can you tell us about your inspiration for your plenary talk?
Well, I've been going to BESIG conferences for a long time and have noticed that the really successful plenaries know the audience. They know who the BESIG members are. And when Rob asked me to do a plenary, he mentioned the idea of our journeys as business English teachers. And this just kept kind of going through my mind and thinking about all of the different paths we take and how we get where we are and what holds us together, what the diversity in our groups, and so on. And my main goal was to talk to the people sitting in the room.
Wow, and that's actually what came across as well, which is amazing that you got us working and thinking as well. And in your experience, how would you describe business English teachers' journeys in general?
Well, I put up a slide that showed different lines. And there was a straight line and a curvy line and divergent lines and ones that kept running into each other, and asked people which ones. I clicked on each one and most hands went up at the really curvy ones, the ones that intersected. Almost no one had a straight line. I don't know how many people actually get out of university and say, I'm going to be a business English teacher. They might do it for primary school or for high schools, but with business English, I suspected, and at least during the plenary, it seemed that it's true. People came from a wide variety of fields. And I asked that question, how many started doing something else? And we came from all sorts of backgrounds. People who were in the arts, other kinds of entertainment, military, which I had forgotten about. We have a few of those. People who had worked in business, people who came from medical professions, from engineering professions, and so on, and some mixed. And that was very interesting. And the way we bring that experience into the jobs we're doing and how we develop over time. So that was the point I was trying to get across there, that our paths may be very different, but at some point they do converge.
Brilliant. And BESIG joins us together.
Exactly.
Great. Now, also in the plenary, you talked about milestones and accidental events in business English teachers' journeys. Can you tell us a bit more about that, please?
I began with the idea of milestones when I worked on another plenary, actually, realizing that many of us think we go through this imposter syndrome. Am I really the person to be standing here talking to you? And so going back and looking at what you've accomplished yourself is an incredible boost in self-confidence, saying, oh, wait, I did do that diploma. Oh, yes, I did do that talk. Oh, I did become an examiner for Cambridge. Oh, I did publish this article. I did do this book. And you begin to see what those milestones are. And once you've gone back and looked at them, it's a very short exercise to jot down over the years things that you've accomplished. And then you can kind of begin to look at where that might be taking you. You might decide to continue with some, and some you might say, okay, I've outgrown that. Let's go on to something new. But the milestones are things that will help us to see what we've really managed to do. And the accidental ideas were you meet someone somewhere. I can remember telling the city of Graz that there was a mistake in a translation somewhere, and suddenly I had a job to do some translations. And I'm sure many of us have had. This isn't just business English, but adult education very often leads to those accidental meetings with somebody in an airport somewhere, on a train, and suddenly you have a job you never expected to have, or somebody knows somebody who can help you. So these are those accidental things that happen probably because so many of us are freelancers. This probably leads to it. And I hadn't actually mentioned that, but I don't know the percentage of BESIG people or business English teachers who are freelance, but I would guess a very large percentage.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
And that's why coming to conferences is also important. All
Yes.
those happy accidents and
Yes.
lovely people you meet.
Yes, exactly.
Wow,
Yeah.
beautiful.
My first book was published by accident. I had a colleague at the Chamber of Commerce, and I was putting together these games, and she loved them. And it turned out her dad was in publishing. And she said, I'm going to give him your stuff. And he passed it on to somebody else who called me. And I went to Vienna, and I was in shock that they actually wanted to publish my book. That was, I think, year 1999 or so. So that was an accidental occurrence.
Yeah, it's beautiful the way those things happen. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing you mentioned around that point in the plenary. You talked about doors and windows.
Yes.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
Okay, well, there is a saying in German, and I think in English, that when a window closes, a door opens. So you might be in a job where something isn't right, you're not a good fit, they're not a good fit for you, and you lose the job. But in losing that job, it frees you up to begin looking for something that's even better. And I gave the example of losing one job at a teacher training institute in Austria and went to talk to someone else about doing a doctorate here. And he said, you're at this point in your career, are you sure you want to do that? Why don't you just contact so-and-so at the university? They're looking for teachers. And I wound up teaching at university for 9 years. It was in the language department. It would have been a different path with a doctorate, but I was very happy where I was, and it was the right fit for me.
Right.
And that's a door opening. You never know when these things might happen. This happened at conference. Someone contacted me over Facebook to ask if I knew of a job for a Ukrainian colleague. And I had who teaches online. I had no idea. And I started talking to someone at the conference who turns out works for an online training institute in Germany, although he doesn't live in Germany. And I said, well, are they looking for people? He said, well, maybe. She got a job.
That's beautiful.
Which is just incredible. This is by chance. And since if we're open to these things, then the opportunities show up. If we are closed off, it's much harder.
That's a beautiful way of putting it, and it's a very positive way of putting it as well. That's the growth mindset and all that, which is lovely.
Exactly.
Great.
Exactly.
Good. Yeah. And could you tell us about goals and goal setting?
Goals are, a very big topic. I have NLP training, neurolinguistic programming, and there's an actual model for goal setting where you have to put the goal in the positive. So you don't say, I don't want a job that I don't like. That's just too hard to imagine. But if you put the goal into something positive, I would like to publish a book with activities. I have a picture of what I want. That makes it much easier to go for. And then I begin working towards that. But a self-check in this one is to make sure that it's within your capabilities, in your own control. I was able to put together the activities and luckily found someone to publish it. Now, today with self-publishing, anyone who decides they want to do that can. And that is in their control. Now, if they say, I want to win an Elton, that's not in their control. And when you hit that roadblock, you have to realize, oh, okay, I couldn't control it, so I can't let that affect my life. But goals, in the talk, I didn't go into this, but I went into the idea of what were the goals that we had at the beginning? How many of us wanted to be business English teachers? Not all the hands went up in the room. And then, but that was when we started. Then what were our goals as we moved on after 5 years, after 10 years, after 20 years? People talked about it. And I'm sure these goals changed. Then we looked back, how many of the goals that we set had we reached? And then looking at goals for the future. How many still have goals? I still have some that I want to reach. don't feel that I'm done yet. So there's always something. There's always, some idea that you think, okay, this is something I still would like to accomplish.
Right.
And at some point you realize your capabilities and you have the resources to do them.
Great. So it's almost like we're doing a stock check on ourselves,
Yes.
and then setting some goals given what we've found out about maybe the trends we've had in our lives. Marvelous. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing with the NLP model is we also need to be able to know when we've reached our goal. So we look at it and say, what do you need to see, to hear, to feel to know you've actually reached the goal? So if it's a goal that's something like, I want to be an excellent teacher, that one's really hard to clarify. But if you say it's when my feedback is such and such, or when I have so many classes, then you know you've reached it. And there are cases where people simply get frustrated because they don't know they've actually reached the goal.
That's an interesting point for people
It's
to
very interesting. Yeah,
reflect
it is.
on. Wow, thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
And just turning to the BSIG community, how would you describe us? And what can we do for ourselves and for each other?
Well, I've been a member since 1995. I'm doing the math in my head. It's not easy, but it's a long time. And I began just as a member, but I do remember going to BSIC conferences and was really surprised at how welcoming people were. I was invited to go along to dinner with people that I didn't know. People made sure that I wasn't alone. And after a while, of course, it became home. I mean, I would run into people because I could never fly direct from Graz. I have to fly over Munich or Frankfurt. I would always meet people in the airport who were on the same flight going to BSIC. Dubrovnik, I had 3 flights. I picked up people at every airport. It was, this happens. This is the BSIC community. And I think, and the BSIC Facebook group, I have a question for somebody, I can put it in there and I know I will get support. I know that somebody will take the time, answer the question, and be helpful. Not ask why I'm asking the question, but just say, oh yeah, I've run into that. This is what I've done. And I think this is all part of us helping each other and supporting each other. And I think an important thing is many freelancers are really isolated. I never had a staff room until I taught at Nile in the summer, and I was shocked. Wow, there are staff rooms in the world, and at university. Other than that, none. You go to your lessons and you go home. So BSIC is kind of like, in a way, it's become almost my virtual staff room, which is something I hadn't thought about, but I think that's absolutely what it is. It's there. And this exchange of ideas only enriches all of us.
Right, yeah. And then you're getting all these perspectives from different or people with different experience, maybe, because we're such a diverse bunch, because we've come at it we've come to it from different angles, different backgrounds.
And I think this might actually be a really great discussion topic, you know, what unusual backgrounds people come from. I mean, we have a couple people who worked on submarines in BSIC. I know that for a fact, which is exactly. And this kind of thing, I don't know how much this comes up in other fields outside business English. I really don't know, but that would be an interesting thing to know.
That's great.
What are the different backgrounds? Yeah, I think there are a lot. But the thing about BSIC as well, because it is business English, we all learn soft skills and business skills. And these skills help us to organize our lives, to do time management, to do presentations, but they also give us an insight to our learners, which we might not have if we've come from another area of teaching. We've done it. We know what it is like to run a meeting. If you've been on a BSIC committee, to get an agenda organized, to have the minutes checked, to know what the minutes are. All of these things that are lessons learned, this is something that project managers have to do. And I think in other cases, teachers may not be as aware because they're not in the same position. They're not teaching business people. And my students have said to me, we really like working with you because you understand our jobs. You don't just teach us English, but you understand what we need to do. And that's vital.
That's a lovely way of putting it. We're a complete package with all these different aspects of our own backgrounds that we can bring to the mix, to the business English classroom.
Yes,
Marvelous.
I agree. Yeah.
Thank you. And towards the end of the plenary, you gave a reflection task, some homework that we had to do. Can you just refresh people's memories about what it was and what feedback did you get from that task? Very innovative.
Well, my idea was to really create community. This was our first time face-to-face since the beginning of the pandemic, and this was so important to so many of us. But there were a lot of new people there. And my idea was not just thanking, but to actually go and talk to someone that you've seen online and always wanted to meet, or to just have a chat with somebody that you had heard about. And I mentioned thanking people, and it seemed that most people took the thanking to heart, and there was so much going on. And I realized myself, I was standing with somebody, I said, I have to thank you for something you did years ago for me. And this person didn't even remember it at all. But it stayed with me because it was so important. It was such an important part of my journey throughout my career. And people came up to me and thanked me for things I had forgotten about. And I wanted people to walk out of the plenary with a feeling of positivity and community and going forward. And that as far as I could see, this was happening throughout the conference. I don't know if you experienced it. I mean, you were very busy, and I don't know how much time you had for this, but I did hear a lot of it going on.
Yeah,
and I wanted people, to get over the fear of going and talking to strangers, because some people are shy. And I did hear from some first timers who said, thank you for that, because it got me moving. It got me out there and talking to people. And that's why we go to conferences. So that was really important. And then we followed up on the Facebook page, which was interesting because there were much wider areas of thanks.
Yeah. It was a beautiful buzz that was going on, and there was a lot of discussion about that in the coffee break afterwards, as well as longer term as well. I was still hearing it even at the end of the conference. So, well, thank you for that inspiration. Okay, and then maybe just to round things off, could you give us an overall message or a bit of advice for business English professionals, whether they're starting on their journey, whether they're in the middle, wherever they are on their journey? What would you like to say to them?
Wow, that's a big order. I would say be yourself. If you are in a situation that isn't working for you, have a look at it, see if it's a situation, or if you need to change, if you need something different. I've changed many jobs over my career. Don't feel you have to do it because somebody's telling you to, and maybe ignore some of the stuff that crops up on social media. I mean, I was told years ago at a business English conference that if I didn't get with the tech program, I wouldn't be working in a couple of years. I think it was about 20 years ago, and I'm still working. So everyone has to do what they can. And for example, I teach in a bank where it's security protocols. I am not allowed to put up a PowerPoint presentation. The students have to do it. So if I want to send them something, I have to send it to their private address, and then they have to do it, because I cannot touch the equipment. That's the way the security works in the bank. And I'm imagining there are other companies like this as well, which is okay. It's fine. And I also don't feel there's no reason to prepare slides for a class. That's not what I'm there for. And I've asked students about this. I was once told by another trainer, the best way to correct homework is to record your comments. And I asked my students, they said, please don't do that. When we get home, we don't want to hear your voice anymore. I thought, okay, they're being honest. They're being, absolutely being honest. So Take advice with a grain of salt.
Mhm.
Think about whether it fits to you as a person,
Mhm.
and be yourself. I mean, if you are the type of person that can throw a stuffed animal around like I did for years, then do it. If you're the kind of person that can sing with your group, do it. If you are not, don't. And I think this is the only main thing that I can say to people.
That's really good advice. And it's interesting because you just said be yourself. And then at the beginning of our talk, you had know your audience. So if you know yourself and you know your audience, you can just let things flow. And whatever's right for that particular group and for you is absolutely right. We don't have to worry about self-imposter syndrome when we've got a happy class or happy business people in front of us.
Exactly. Exactly. I think I mean, yes, we do need to look up specialized things. We need to know something about specialized vocabulary. We have to work on these skills. We might have to look up vocabulary. We have to be open to learning new things. But I can give you one other example. This was interesting. We always say how, students learn from us, but we are also lifelong learners. And one presentation at BESIG, someone ended it and said, I had a problem with a class and I got stuck. Does anyone have an idea? And I went to my group and I explained the situation and said, does anyone have any ideas? And they said, oh yeah, we have this form that we fill out when things go wrong. They sent it to me and I sent it on. This person adapted it, used it with class, and it was very successful because I took something from the real business world and they were able to apply it. But saying to people, I don't have the answer, can anyone help me, can be a major step forward. And we don't all have the answers. I really don't think so.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about BESIG. That's why
Yeah.
BESIG's always been there.
And that's another beautiful example of the community coming up trumps. You were on the receiving end of that request and you passed the information along. It's a beautiful synergy flow going on.
Exactly.
So Marjorie, thank you so much for taking the time today to tell us a bit more about the themes that you'd raised in your plenary. And thank you for sharing your own examples of your journey, which has been a journey, the BESIG, attending conferences, becoming the coordinator, the IATEFL president as well. So many milestones on your journey, and now the BESIG plenary as well. And I'd like to thank you personally because you've inspired me on so many counts, from your writings in business issues way up to many things I can't even mention. But thank you once again. And dear viewers, I'd like to encourage you to watch the full plenary. It's in the IATEFL BESIG website in the members only area. You can also access the full slide deck as well. So please do go and check it out again, full of some wonderful messages. All right. Thank you once again, Marjorie. All the very best to you.
It's always a pleasure. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.